For 16 years I alone upheld the He household. Yet when the general returned, he elevated his concubine to equal wife. He declared, "Yang has guarded the frontier with me for years, enduring every hardship. This is her due." But the aristocratic families recognized only me as the rightful mistress. The general accused me of scheming behind his back, severed my ties to the outside world, and imprisoned me until death. When I opened my eyes again, the general had just entered the door when I turned and presented a child. "This child may not be yours, but I am your wife." The general's face turned green with fury. That was the situation. The general's triumphant return should have been a time of celebration for the entire household. Now, the atmosphere throughout the mansion had sunk to its lowest point. The common folk gathered outside the Marquis's residence pointed and whispered about us. Jiang Weichen watched me tenderly playing with the infant in my arms, his face turning increasingly ashen. He accused me, "I've been at war for years and never touched you. Where did this bastard come from? You shameless whore." I shot a cold glance at the concubine Jiang Weichen had brought back, Yang Yang. Yang Yang returned my look of contempt, as if I had committed some heinous crime. How laughable. When a man keeps a harem of concubines, it's called romantic escapades. Yet when I merely bring up someone else's child, I'm branded shameless? I sneered. What? Only officials can set fires. But commoners can't even light lamps? The vein on Jiang Weichen's temple nearly burst. He lunged toward me, raising his hand to strike. But the blow never landed. A eunuch's shrill voice pierced the air outside. "Imperial edict has arrived. The loyal and valiant Marquis is summoned to receive it." Jiang Weichen shot me a vicious glare before rushing out to receive the decree. In my previous life, the Imperial edict had arrived at this very moment too. Jiang Weichen returned triumphant from the frontier, where the emperor bestowed upon him the title of Duke Protector of the nation. Yet he traded that reward for another decree. He pleaded with His Majesty to honor Yang Yang, who had endured 16 years of hardship guarding the frontier alongside him, by elevating her to second-rank noble consort and granting them a royal marriage. He publicly elevated a concubine to equal status. Yet he made no mention of my existence. This act was tantamount to trampling my dignity into the mud. At that moment, I was beside myself with rage. He, however, accused me of being jealous and scolded me, "Su Zhirong. While you were enjoying the comforts of the home mansion in the capital, Yang Yang endured the bitter cold on the frontier, guarding the border with me. How much suffering she endured for me. How much criticism she faced. Why should you reap all the benefits while she gets nothing but an unrecognized status? She deserves every bit of it." And so it was. Jiang Weichen married Yang Yang in a grand ceremony, treating her as an equal wife. He believed this would allow Yang Yang to replace me. Yet after their marriage, Yang Yang never gained the respect she deserved. The capital was not like the frontier. Among the aristocratic families, relationships were intricate and complex, bound by countless formalities and protocols. Yang Yang knew nothing of these things. Her blunt, careless words, spoken with or without intent, easily offended other noble families. I didn't want to be dragged down by her, to suffer misfortune alongside her. So, for the greater good, I had no choice but to constantly remind her how to interact with the noble ladies, following her around all day to clean up her messes. Yet Yang Yang looked down on me. "You ignorant woman. You can only oppress me with these pedantic rules. I'm a second-rank noble lady personally conferred by His Majesty. I've fought alongside generals on the battlefield. What are you lot? Anyway?" Her arrogant, rude attitude often left me so furious I couldn't eat all day. Not to mention the other young nobles of distinguished lineage. Gradually, the noble ladies stopped acknowledging Yang Yang. Their gazes toward me grew tinged with pity. They would clasp my hands, sighing at my suffering. Yet whenever Yang Yang heard such words, she would secretly wring her handkerchief to shreds. Jiang Weichen believed I deliberately stole Yang Yang's spotlight and stirred trouble behind her back. So he imprisoned me in a remote courtyard. Jiang Weichen said, "Whenever you appear, people are reminded of her, how she followed me for 16 years without name or status. But Yang Yang fought alongside me. She was the one who endured all the hardship and injustice. Su Zhirong, you've never sacrificed anything, don't presume to claim the glory meant for Yang Yang. He severed all my ties to the outside world. Confined me utterly alone in that remote courtyard. I begged Jiang Weichen for a divorce. To set me free." His eyes flickered. But he gave no reply. He imprisoned me until death. Only in my final moments did I understand why Jiang Weichen had kept me captive. Had he divorced me for Yang Yang, the world would have branded him heartless and faithless, tarnishing his reputation. Before dying, I finally saw his selfish nature clearly. I passed away filled with resentment. Fortunately, when I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn to the year before Jiang Weichen's decisive victory. Heaven had been kind, granting me a year to prepare. So I prepared a grand gift for him. This time, alongside his imperial decree of enfeoffment, another edict awaited. Now, over 100 servants of the He household knelt in the courtyard awaiting the decree. Curious onlookers outside the gates strained their ears to hear. Imperial Edict 1, Su Shi's legitimate daughter, Fu Shi, is as bright as ice and snow, as lovely as jade and snow. She is hereby conferred the title of legitimate Princess Fu Shi. Su Shi, for her arduous efforts in raising legitimate Princess Fu Shi, is conferred the title of first-rank Lady of Yu Kingdom. She may freely enter and exit the palace precincts. So decreed. Imperial Edict 2, Jiang Weichen, for his meritorious service in protecting the nation, is hereby conferred the title of Duke of Protection. So decreed. After proclaiming the edicts, the eunuch suddenly leaned close to Jiang Weichen's ear. Whispering softly, he said, "His Majesty has learned that while serving at the frontier, the Duke of Hugu maintained a concubine as his consort. Since the Duke and Lady you have no affection left, you must swiftly sign the divorce papers. Do not waste Lady Yu's youth." The eunuch's words were extremely veiled. Yet even the most obtuse among those present sensed something amiss. Outside the gates, the common folk had already erupted into a frenzy of whispers. How could the Duke of He, perpetually at war, have fathered the Lady Yu? He should rename himself the Duke of Green. Ha ha ha. The Emperor permits court ladies to enter the palace freely without cause. Could he be seeking to emulate the Yang Guifei of the previous dynasty? You know what I mean. TSK TSK TSK. This Princess Fu Shi is most likely the Emperor's own seed. Jiang Weichen naturally heard the people's pointed remarks. His face grew paler by the moment as he listened. Pointing at me, his hand trembling with suppressed rage, "Why does His Majesty only refer to you as Lady Su? You must know that a married woman should prefix her husband's surname before her own." I shot Jiang Weichen a half-smile, then lowered my gaze to the little bundle of joy in my arms. The eunuch who delivered the imperial decree rolled his eyes, then stepped forward to coo at the infant in my arms. Princess Fu Shi is truly a little angel. The eunuch wore a fawning expression, but his words were a subtle jab. Just look at those features. So much like His Majesty. I smiled without comment, but promptly rewarded the eunuch with a tray of gold. Behind me, Jiang Weichen suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Amidst the cries of the servants and Yang Yang, Jiang Weichen fainted from the shock. He didn't regain consciousness until evening. I sat by his bedside, quietly flipping through medical texts. Our Su family had practiced medicine for generations. My grandfather even being personally appointed by the previous emperor as the imperial physician extraordinaire. The Jiang family, however, was a lineage of military commanders. Years ago, His Majesty had intended to arrange a marriage for him, hoping he would produce an heir for the Jiang family before heading off to war. Yet as the emperor surveyed the capital's eligible maidens, his brow furrowed deeply. For any marriage between the general commanding 1,000,000 troops and a powerful court noble could threaten the imperial throne. Ultimately, the emperor's gaze fell upon the Imperial Medical Academy. The medical families were respectable yet distant from the seat of power. Moreover, the academy produced countless physicians each year, perfect candidates to serve as Jiang Weichen's personal military physician. It was a match made in heaven. Thus, with a flourish of his brush, the emperor betrothed me to Jiang Weichen. At the time, the emperor clasped my father's hand by guarding the general's residence. "You safeguard the empire for me." Overwhelmed with emotion, my father allocated most of the Imperial Medical Academy's elite as my dowry to Jiang Weichen. On the second day after our wedding, Jiang Weichen departed for the northern frontier with my dowry. Though our Su family could not fight on the front lines for Jiang Weichen, we tended to the wounded and saved lives in the rear. I single-handedly upheld the marquisate for 16 years. Diligent and conscientious, never daring to slack. I believed I had done nothing to betray Jiang Weichen. Yet I never imagined that the day he returned victorious would mark the beginning of my nightmare. The movement on the bed snapped me back to reality. The moment Jiang Weichen opened his eyes and saw me, his rage boiled over. He grabbed the jade pillow and hurled it at me. But I was prepared, tilting my head slightly to dodge it. Thud! The pillow shattered into pieces. He gasped for breath, consumed by jealous rage that robbed him of reason. At the same time, he sensed something amiss with his body. His legs wouldn't move. Jiang Weichen's face twisted in horror. "What have you done to me?" I calmly closed my book. "Nothing serious. Just inserted 2 needles into acupoints on your legs to prevent you from leaping up to attack again." Jiang Weichen looked suspicious. "What do you mean?" Before he could finish, a young man burst into the room. Though dusty from travel, his heroic bearing was undeniable. "Rong. I've finally found you." The newcomer embraced me passionately, right in front of Jiang Weichen. His excitement made him incoherent. "Everyone in the capital is saying you're carrying a baby girl. By the dates, this child couldn't possibly be Jiang Weichen's. So that must be my daughter, right?" Rong. "Tell me, am I going to be a father?" No sooner had the words left his mouth than another pillow flew from the bed. Crash! This time, Jiang Weichen smashed the imperial plaque bestowed by the late emperor, inscribed with loyalty and patriotism, right off the wall. Furious beyond measure, Jiang Weichen ignored the strange sensation in his legs and tumbled off the bed in his rage. "Where the hell did you bastard come from? You adulterer!" He crawled furiously toward the man. "I'll kill you. Kill all of you." The man finally realized someone else was in the room. He looked at Jiang Weichen, disheveled yet raging like a mad bull. "Oh, isn't this the Duke of Huigu?" The man bowed with a smile toward the madman on the floor. "I am Prince Duan. Xiao Mingzhan, the emperor's own uncle." Jiang Weichen froze. He stared at Xiao Mingzhan in disbelief, then glanced at me. "You. How many people do you have on the outside?" Jiang Weichen's fists trembled. "Their uncle and nephew. I demand to enter the palace. To see His Majesty. I've been defending the nation's borders. Sleeping under the stars. And they, uncle and nephew, are playing with my woman. This is intolerable. And so, I, Xiao Mingzhan, and Jiang Weichen entered the palace that very night. As for Yang, at that moment, she was locked away alone in the side courtyard. Truly, no one cared she existed. The emperor, roused from sleep in the dead of night, suppressed his rage. But Jiang Weichen had just performed a great service for the nation, so the emperor had to treat him with respect. Flames of fury blazed in Jiang Weichen's eyes. Consumed by rage, he failed to notice the emperor's irritation. Kneeling before the throne, he stiffened his neck and demanded, "Your Majesty, the people all say that Princess Fuxi bears an uncanny resemblance to you." The emperor frowned in confusion. "Princess Fuxi is my own daughter. If she doesn't resemble me, then who does she resemble?" Jiang Weichen staggered back 3 steps. Stunned. Xiao Mingzhan hung his head dejectedly, but... Isn't Fuxi my daughter? The emperor shot him a disdainful glance. Isn't she also your niece? But I want a daughter too. Who told you to be useless? Wah. This prince really wants a daughter. Xiao Mingzhan threw a tantrum, rolling on the ground. Yet as Jiang Weichen witnessed the scene, he felt as if the air in his lungs had been sucked out, nearly suffocating him. Several times, Jiang Weichen nearly rolled his eyes back and fainted again. But in front of the emperor, he somehow managed to hold on. I was astonished Jiang Weichen could be so resilient. Jiang Weichen cried out tearfully, Your Majesty, are you and Prince Duan even human? Emperor? Prince Duan? Jiang Weichen's eyes reddened. Su Zhirong is my legally wedded wife. Xiao Mingzhan sneered coldly. Oh? The Duke of Jiang still remembers he has a legitimate wife in the capital? But I hear from border reports that General Zhang's wife is Yan Yang, and they're deeply in love. Exposed before everyone. Jiang Weichen's face flushed crimson then drained pale. He gritted his teeth. Prince Duan. Cease spreading slander. Yan Yang hasn't formally entered the household, she's merely a concubine. I snorted coldly. This time, Jiang Weichen showed no urgency to elevate Yan Yang to co-wife status. He certainly couldn't acknowledge Yan Yang's status. Otherwise, it would mean both he and I were playing around. Both morally corrupt. He couldn't stand on the moral high ground to condemn us. Sure enough, after denying Xiao Mingzhan's words, Jiang Weichen dropped a bombshell. Your Majesty, to defile another man's wife and daughter is the act of a tyrant. Your actions have shattered the hearts of 1 million soldiers guarding our borders. The atmosphere in the hall froze instantly. Jiang Weichen looked utterly humiliated, as if he wished to smash his head against a pillar and die right then and there. The emperor's eyes betrayed confusion. I hasten to add, Your Majesty, Jiang Weichen believes Princess Fuxi, the legitimate heiress, was born from my wife's illicit affair with Your Majesty. The emperor's jaw nearly dropped. He thought he must be sleepwalking to hear such preposterous claims. He even pinched his thigh viciously, gasping in pain. The emperor's face flushed crimson with fury. He slammed his fist on the table. Absurd. It seems the Duke of Hubei hasn't fully awakened. Guards! Drag him out and beat him into clarity before he speaks again. This time, Jiang Weichen had truly enraged the emperor. And so, before Jiang Weichen could even cry out his innocence, he was dragged away by the Imperial guards and received dozens of heavy lashes. The emperor's face darkened like a sooty pot bottom as he demanded of me, what madness has possessed Jiang Weichen in the dead of night? Fearing the emperor might vent his anger upon me, I immediately knelt and cried out in protest, Your Majesty is wise. Jiang Weichen mistakenly believed my wife was unfaithful and attempted to beat her to death while she was at our residence. My wife tried to stop him, pleading with him not to act rashly. But he wouldn't listen to reason and insisted on dragging her to the palace for a confrontation. She's just a frail woman, how could she possibly resist him? Xiao Mingzhan stepped forward to speak for me, Your Majesty. I can also testify. Earlier at the Jiang residence, he threw a pillow at me too. He even smashed the imperial plaque bestowed upon him for loyalty and patriotism. The emperor's temples throbbed with fury. Jiang Weichen dares to rebel against heaven. I pressed my forehead to the floor, feigning delicate fear. Yet my lips couldn't suppress a smile. Jiang Weichen was finished this time. The guards acted swiftly. Before my laughter subsided, Jiang Weichen was carried back into the hall. There he lay, writhing on the floor in agony. The emperor sat on the dragon throne, his face dark. His beard bristled with fury. Jiang Weichen, I honored you as Duke of the nation for your tireless service defending our borders. But even with your lofty achievements, you dare slander the birth of Princess Fuxi, the emperor's own daughter. Princess Fuxi is the daughter born to this emperor and the empress. Out of consideration for your service defending the borders, and knowing Lady Su remained alone in the He residence, I feared you might have no children to carry on the filial duty. Thus, I registered my daughter under the Su name. This is an honor beyond the wildest dreams of others, truly unprecedented since the founding of our dynasty. I sought to surprise you. Yet you have only returned terror. Your mind is clouded by pig fat. You dally with lowly women on the frontier, betraying your own loyalty and virtue. Now back in the capital, you see every woman as unclean. How can such a fool as you command an army? Effective immediately. I strip you of your title. Surrender your tiger token at once and return to your residence to reflect on your transgressions. You shall not leave without summons. The emperor dismissed Jiang Weichen's protests, storming out in fury. Thus, the three of us were cast out of the palace. Jiang Weichen, driven by baseless suspicion, disregarded imperial decorum by barging into the palace at midnight to stir trouble. He even slandered the emperor to his face, accusing him of adultery. He had thoroughly offended the emperor. The emperor's scathing rebuke that Jiang Weichen's achievements threatened the throne signaled he would never be trusted again. He had committed the ultimate crime against a sovereign. I suspected that if Jiang Weichen lingered any longer, the emperor might lose control and act on his murderous impulse. On the road out of the palace, Jiang Weichen finally grasped the situation. He cursed me. Did you deliberately set this trap for me? I replied with righteous indignation, yes. He flew into such a rage he wanted to strike me again. But I produced a silver needle and coldly confronted him with it. I knew I couldn't defeat him in a fight. Yet living under the same roof, I had ample opportunity to strike him down in secret. He seemed to grasp something, and could only storm off in frustration. A year ago, I truly did consider betraying Jiang Weichen. But then I thought, why sacrifice myself for such scum? Not worth it. So I began digging pits for Jiang Weichen. I went to the palace to plead with the emperor, saying Jiang Weichen had been at war for years, separating us for 16 years. I hadn't borne him a son or daughter before passing my prime childbearing years. I feared the Marquis's house would die out, leaving me without support in my old age. Offspring were the paramount concern. Jiang Weichen served the nation faithfully, yet faced separation from his wife and a bleak old age. The emperor feared this would demoralize his soldiers. Thus, he registered Princess Fuxi, the legitimate princess, under my name. The emperor promised, when the princess comes of age, she will marry a prince consort, ensuring imperial descendants would care for us in our twilight years. This was an immense honor. I knelt in ecstatic gratitude, thanking the emperor's grace. The emperor intended to issue an edict to Jiang Weichen, but I intercepted it. Princess Fuxi was still very young at the time, delicate and frail, prone to frequent illness. I wished to raise the princess until she was 3 years old before sharing this good news with Jiang Weichen. Truthfully, a major reason the emperor dared to entrust the princess to my care was my background in a family of physicians. Infants in the palace often died young. Placing Princess Fuxi in my care might just give her a chance to grow up. It was a win-win situation. The emperor tacitly approved my plan. But from the moment Jiang Weichen stepped into the Marquis's residence, I deliberately led him on, making him believe I had betrayed him. Even the eunuch who delivered the imperial decree was bribed by me. It was all about exploiting the information gap. Princess Fuxi was the first trap I set for Jiang Weichen. Half a year later, I went to the emperor again to sow discord. I presented evidence of Jiang Weichen taking another wife at the frontier. I rallied the Su clan, and we all knelt before the emperor in unison. I was the emperor's personally bestowed legitimate wife. Yet Jiang Weichen had established a small household with another woman at the frontier. I demanded to sue Jiang Weichen for contempt of the imperial will and petitioned for divorce. The emperor was utterly shocked. On the surface, this was merely Jiang Weichen indulging his romantic whims by keeping a mistress. But delve deeper, and it revealed a general commanding 1,000,000 troops who disregarded his imperial consort, instead consorting with a frontier woman. Remember, anything bearing the imperial seal is no ordinary matter. If Jiang Weichen disregards the emperor's marriage decree today, tomorrow he'll flout any other imperial command. Didn't the emperor bestow this marriage upon me precisely because he feared losing control over Jiang Weichen? Now, with Jiang Weichen paying lip service while acting contrary, he's long slipped beyond the emperor's grasp. Therefore, I deliberately used the emperor's greatest fear to sow discord between sovereign and subject. Yet the emperor remained silent for a long time before sighing. The border campaign has reached its most critical juncture. Not a single slip may occur that could shake the soldiers' resolve. In this war, the warriors charging into battle at the front are vital. But the military doctors tending the wounded in the rear are equally crucial. If the medics and soldiers learn of your discord, how can we continue this war? Su Zhirong, bear with this for now. I know you've guarded the home mansion alone for 16 years. You've guarded not just these walls, but the entire realm and the peace of its people. Half a year ago, the emperor prioritized the greater good. He demanded my patience. He too endured in silence. But now, after Jiang Weichen fought his battles, he no longer held the same importance to the emperor. Thus, his past mistakes became flaws the emperor could no longer tolerate. In the previous life, Jiang Weichen traded military merit to marry Yan Yang as a secondary wife. By chance, he struck at the emperor's heart, securing a lifetime of peace. But this time, Jiang Weichen, consumed by rage, lost his reason. His actions were tantamount to plucking a tiger's whiskers. Jiang Weichen was utterly finished. Now, though I failed to achieve my goal of divorce, Jiang Weichen was berated by the emperor for his achievements overshadowing the sovereign, stripped of his tiger token on the spot, and confined to his residence. Evidently, not a single drop of the poison I administered went to waste. Jiang Weichen still dares to parade Yan Yang as his equal wife? Dream on. Returning to the general's residence, Jiang Weichen once again sought to smash things in his rage. But just as he raised a porcelain vase, he spotted Xiao Mingzhan following closely behind us through the door. Jiang Weichen's face darkened. What brings you to my home? Xiao Mingzhan, I've come to retrieve my wife. Jiang Weichen was so enraged he couldn't utter a word. How dare you? But I emerged from the back courtyard supporting a heavily pregnant woman. Your Highness, your wife is right here. Jiang Weichen. His jaw dropped. He couldn't believe it. Why are they living in my residence? I answered, they've been childless for years. They came to me seeking fertility blessings and nurturing their pregnancy. Jiang Weichen, then why did he call you Rongrong? And embrace you right in front of me? The Prince of Duan is my distant cousin. Elders calling me by my childhood name, is that so strange? My laughter shook my chest. It's his first time becoming a father. He's overwhelmed with emotion, he couldn't help himself. Cut him some slack. Back then, on the second day after my marriage to Jiang Weichen, he led his troops into battle. 16 years passed in between. Naturally, he wouldn't know much about my family's relatives. This was still all about information asymmetry. Jiang Weichen. Xiao Mingzhan spread his hands in feigned regret. What a pity, it was all a misunderstanding. Jiang Weichen's grip on the porcelain vase suddenly loosened, and it crashed onto his foot. Amidst Jiang Weichen's cries of pain, I swiftly gathered 2 personal maids, cradled Princess Fuxi, and left with Xiao Mingzhan. Jiang Weichen hobbled after us. Jiang Weichen, you're the mistress of the Jiang household. Where do you think you're going in the middle of the night? Xiao Mingzhan sneered coldly. Naturally. To my prince's residence to help the princess consort with her pregnancy. Or should I remain imprisoned with you until death? Jiang Weichen was left speechless once more. The next day, the emperor posted an imperial edict throughout the city, clarifying Princess Fuxi's origins and finally quelling the rumors. With no more gossip to pursue, the busybodies dispersed. I resided within the Prince Duan's mansion. Yet I knew forcing Jiang Weichen to divorce me would prove no easy task. But this lifetime, without me cleaning up their messes, How long could the Jiang household possibly endure? Before the Jiang mansion crumbled, I must bolster my own standing. Thus, beyond tending to the Prince Duan's consort, I frequently visited the inner courtyards of noble households to offer free medical consultations. In my previous life, even when I went out representing the Marquis's household as its matriarch, no matter how splendid it seemed, that glory was borrowed from Jiang Weichen. So, in this new life, I would shine through my own abilities. I no longer buried myself in the Imperial Medical Academy, poring over formulas to heal soldiers' wounds swiftly. I turned my gaze to a world without Jiang Weichen, only then realizing that within the courtyards of noble families, there were many others worthy of my aid. The princess consort of Duan suffered from irregular menstruation, enduring excruciating abdominal pain during her period, making conception difficult. The dowager of the Marquis's household bore 3 sons. In her old age, even a sneeze caused incontinence. After contracting an infection, she endured unbearable pain when urinating. A husband's infidelity caused his wife's genital itching and persistent odor. These were ailments they could not bring themselves to discuss with the male imperial physician during consultations. They endured their suffering in silence. Much like their lives confined within the inner quarters, lives unnoticed, unvalued, and unknown to the outside world. Yet the small inner quarters were never a cage binding my soul, they were the free realm where I could unleash my talents. Born into a family of physicians, I had been immersed in medicine since childhood and mastered its arts. That year, I shifted my focus to gynecology, frequently traveling to the inner courtyards of noble families and marquis mansions to treat their hidden ailments. I meticulously recorded symptoms and prescriptions, compiling them into volumes for future generations to study and reference. I charged no consultation fees, instead offering my services as a gesture of goodwill. Gradually, my reputation reached the imperial harem, where I became a frequent guest among the consorts. The empress regarded me as her right-hand woman, urging me to compile my notes swiftly. She planned to establish a women's medical academy within the Imperial Medical Bureau, expanding it nationwide so women in other regions could also benefit. This, truly, was the reason His Majesty granted me unrestricted access to the palace. I toiled tirelessly for them, and for myself. Jiang Weichen could restrict my freedom in the name of husband. But could he stem the tide of noblewomen and imperial consorts who came seeking my care? This lifetime, no one shall confine my liberty. Yet I underestimated Jiang Weichen's love-stricken mind. Or perhaps, after I moved out of the general's residence, Jiang Weichen spent day and night with Yang. He recalled the hardships they endured together on the frontier, remembered their affection. On one hand, he dragged out the divorce proceedings, trying to wear me down. On the other, he sent out invitations far and wide, summoning the city's most prominent families to the general's residence for a feast and ceremony. He performed the rites of a proper husband, bowing 3 times before the ancestral tablets with Yang. He declared, though Yang is not my lawful wife, she surpasses any wife. After 100 years, posterity will remember only how Yang and I repelled invaders together on the frontier. They will remember my loyalty to the emperor and love for my country. And they will remember Yang, a woman who surpassed any man. He longed to have someone compose a stirring tale of their shared defense of the frontier. A love story that would move the soul. He wanted everyone to sing his praises and extol their love, hoping to use the wind of public opinion to shift the emperor's perception of him, making the emperor remember his virtues. Alas, someone immediately countered. If you consider Yang your lawful wife, why not divorce Lady Yu first before marrying her properly? After divorcing Lady Yu, she wouldn't have to hide behind the title of general's wife locked away in the inner courtyard. She could finally practice medicine at the clinic. This is what so many have longed for day and night. It said Yang was so stung by the words formally wed that she burst into tears on the spot, tore off her red veil, and fled, face covered. Jiang Weichen was left utterly humiliated, barely able to save face. The so-called wedding banquet ended in a hasty, shambolic conclusion. The favors I'd been cultivating for a year finally paid off in that moment. Yet Jiang Weichen blamed me entirely for the humiliation he suffered at the wedding. "It's all her fault," Jiang Weichen roared, flipping the table. "A proper mistress should stay home instead of embarrassing me everywhere, giving others ammunition to attack me." Though confined to the house, the emperor hadn't confined others. So he sent Yang Yang back to the military headquarters, borrowed several dozen trusted former subordinates, and led them to capture me. When they found me, I had just finished examining the crown prince's consort. The two of us were sitting in the flower hall, drinking tea and chatting cheerfully. Yang Yang, mounted on a steed taller than a man, clad in sleek armor, looked remarkably dashing as she brandished her red-plumed spear. This troop had seen battlefields and spilled blood. When they stormed the Prince Duan's residence, the gatehouse servants couldn't stop them. Dozens of fully armed warriors stood in the rear courtyard, radiating a palpable aura of lethal intent. The women of the inner quarters, unaccustomed to such sights, were utterly cowed. Yang Yang sat high atop her steed, gazing down at me with disdain. "You women of the inner quarters, all you're good for is gossiping behind our backs. But if not for the general and I fighting on the front lines, how could you privileged nobles sit comfortably in your halls, weaving tales of our misdeeds? You ignorant women, long in hair but short on sense, truly heartless and treacherous. Shameful." She swept the flower hall with a haughty gaze. The smiles froze on the faces of the noble ladies within. I always knew Yang Yang possessed a fierce pride. She saw herself as a heroine defending the nation through battle. Unlike us secluded wives who could only cling to men, she looked down on us. Thus, her words often cut deep. In my past life, I followed her, offering constant reminders. Their noble lineages boasted ancestors who had earned great merit for the dynasty. But Yang Yang impatiently pushed me away. "All you ever do is throw outdated, irrelevant history at me." While the general and I were slaying enemy leaders at the frontier, you women were hiding in your courtyards, reminiscing about past glories. She'd been fawned over by Jiang Weichen for too long, truly becoming arrogant and conceited. I curved my lips into a faint smile. "This lifetime, I'll see how this farce ends." I gave a subtle nod to the maid beside me. The maid slipped away silently. Then, calmly sipping my tea, I sneered. "So the general's private soldiers can just barge into anyone's courtyard? Such behavior makes you no better than bandits. Don't dare smear us." Yang Yang pointed her red-plumed spear at me, fury boiling. "I act under the general's orders to apprehend this meddlesome woman for interrogation." Clearly, she was venting all the fury from that day's public humiliation upon me. I laughed. "Yang Yang, in the capital, only the Ministry of Justice may use the term interrogation when apprehending criminals." The women beside me, who had been intimidated, suddenly came to their senses. They murmured among themselves, "This isn't the Jiang residence. How dare you trespass into another's home? This is outrageous. Have you no regard for the law?" Yang Yang's arrogance dimmed slightly, but refusing to show weakness before me, she gritted her teeth and blustered. "A woman marries and follows her husband. I'm taking this vile woman back to enforce family law." As Yang Yang spoke, she suddenly seized upon the crucial point. Her back straightened instantly. "Yes, it is family law." This vile woman spoke insolently. Disrespecting her husband, she violated the duty of a wife. She spread slanderous gossip. Tarnishing the Jiang household's reputation, she violated the duty of speech. She neglected her home duties of supporting her husband and raising children. Instead, causing trouble outside, she violated the duty of household management. Of the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, she has violated 4. I enforce family law by bringing her back for discipline. What's wrong with that? As her words fell, the entire hall fell silent. She invoked the admonitions for women written by Ban Zhao of the Han dynasty. Yet since the founding of our dynasty by the great ancestor, customs have been liberal. We've had empresses and female generals. And precedents exist for princesses remarrying twice or thrice. The admonitions for women she cited are not universal rules every woman must follow. I leaned back lazily, speaking with languid indifference, and what of you? If you truly upheld the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, how did you come to consort with my husband on the frontier without a matchmaker? Yaon Yang's face paled instantly. Furious and humiliated, she seized her spear and charged at me on horseback. But the servants and guards from the rear courtyard had already arrived, clashing with Yaon Yang's group. The Duchess of Duan gripped my hand, soothingly saying, "Don't be afraid, niece. Even if it means exhausting every ounce of strength in the Duan household, this Duchess will protect you." I was cold-hearted and unfeeling by nature. Yet hearing the Duchess of Duan's words, my eyes suddenly welled with tears. She, a pregnant woman, was willing to stand up for me. It turned out not everyone was as heartless and treacherous as Jiang Weichen. When people receive kindness from me, they naturally repay it in kind. This farce finally ended when Xiao Mingzhan led the Imperial guards charging into the rear courtyard. I sent my maidservant to alert them, but I hadn't anticipated Xiao Mingzhan's men would surround the courtyard so tightly. Which blind fool dares lay a hand on this prince's niece? Xiao Mingzhan rolled up his sleeves, thrusting them into his hips as he stormed in. Seeing the tide had turned, Yan Yang and her group had no choice but to surrender on the spot. I rose to my feet, gazing down at Yan Yang from above. She was encircled by the Imperial guards. Shining blades and spears were pointed at her. Reluctantly, she tossed her red-plumed spear to the ground, glaring at me with resentment. "If you've got the guts, fight me one-on-one. What kind of skill is calling for backup? True ability isn't measured by brutality." My voice remained calm. You fight enemies on the front lines, defending our borders. I save lives in the rear, protecting our people. Yaon Yang, you're no nobler than I am. The noblewomen who had been indirectly insulted by Yaon Yang that day rose in furious indignation. They jointly petitioned the emperor, demanding severe punishment for the Duke of Hu's household. Jiang Weichen instigated Yaon Yang and his former military subordinates to trespass into the royal residence, insulting noble consorts with utter contempt for the law, arrogant, tyrannical, and utterly treasonous. Her crimes had aroused the collective wrath of the court, and officials demanded the emperor execute Yaon Yang to vent their fury. Believing victory assured, I knelt before the imperial throne once more, beseeching His Majesty to grant me a divorce from Jiang Weichen. Yet the emperor offered no direct response to my plea. Instead, he commanded me to return Princess Fuxi, the legitimate heir, to the palace. The emperor said, that day, you two confronted each other openly before all. I feared the princess might be startled, and I could not sleep day or night. I am the emperor, but I am also a father. I hope you understand. The emperor was no fool. He finally saw through my schemes and turned his anger upon me. But considering the empress had ordered me to organize medical records for the future establishment of a women's medical academy, he chose not to hold it against me. But Jiang Weichen and Yan Yang were not so fortunate. His Majesty dispatched heavy troops to besiege the Jiang residence, allowing no one in or out, lest Jiang Weichen cause further upheaval. Previously, only Jiang Weichen was confined. Now the entire Jiang household was under house arrest. When I returned the princess to the palace, I prostrated myself 3 times before Princess Fuxi. This sinful woman failed to protect your highness. I humbly beg your forgiveness. The princess was still a swaddled infant. Seeing her wet nurse carry her away from me, she suddenly burst into wails. The emperor did not punish me, nor did he take further action against Jiang Weichen. For in recent days, Urgent reports arrived from the frontier. Several bands of Khitan raiders were frequently invading our border villages with sinister intent. No sooner had Jiang Weichen departed than the Khitan forces reignited their aggression. Evidently, Jiang Weichen held sway over the Khitan. I knew the emperor retained Jiang Weichen to deploy him again when the frontier next faced peril. This filled Jiang Weichen with smug satisfaction. He sent word through intermediaries, "Just you wait. As long as this general refuses to divorce, sooner or later, I'll settle all old and new grievances." With Jiang Weichen and I now openly at odds, he won't let me off the hook. Xiao Mingzhan reassured me, "Rest assured, niece. With your maternal uncle here, no one can harm you in the slightest." But I countered, "The Khitan's arrival seems suspiciously timely. Perhaps we should send someone to investigate if there's any foul play involved." Xiao Mingzhan snapped to attention, "Very well. I shall dispatch men immediately." After a moment's thought, I added, "After several rounds of conflict, Jiang Weichen and Yao Nyang have shown only rashness and recklessness, with no regard for consequences. They hardly seem like clever men." Xiao Mingzhan agreed, "You're right, niece. Those two fools? I don't believe they could achieve anything meaningful on the frontier on their own. I'll have my men investigate. Jiang Weichen must be hiding something." After Jiang Weichen was placed under house arrest, I finally enjoyed some peace. Apart from him occasionally sending messages to curse me, nothing major happened. Xiao Mingzhan was busy reorganizing Jiang Weichen's troops and helping me investigate matters. I was occupied compiling medical records and traveling to see patients. It was Yao Nyang who frequently sent people to procure fertility herbs. It seemed she was hoping for a child. Having followed Jiang Weichen in battle for years, she never rested properly during her menstrual cycles. Over time, this likely took a toll on her health. If she could find a skilled physician, especially one proficient in gynecology, to regulate her constitution, perhaps her wish might come true. But alas, in all the capital, none surpassed me in gynecology. That winter, under my careful care, the Duchess of Duan gave birth to a young heir. My reputation soared overnight. Many women desperate for children came seeking my help. Jiang Weichen and Yao Nyang again sent messengers to me. But Xiao Mingzhan finally lost his temper and had the messenger beaten. The entire Prince Duan's mansion was in celebration, and he wished to see no ill omens. Xiao Mingzhan expressed a hint of regret. This prince truly longs for a daughter. Come spring, the information I had Xiao Mingzhan inquire about finally yielded results. It turned out that Jiang Weichen's repeated military triumphs at the border were due to a strategist behind the scenes. Yet when Jiang Weichen came to the capital to report his duties, he claimed all the credit for himself, not mentioning the deputy commander with a single word. This was typical of Jiang Weichen. He took others' contributions for granted while attributing success solely to himself. When I found that deputy commander, he was gloomy and spent his days drowning his sorrows in brothels. "Isn't that how all you big shots operate?" The deputy laughed bitterly. "When there's glory, it's all the higher-ups doing. When there's blame, they drag their subordinates out to take the fall." I asked him, "So you're just going to wallow in self-pity?" The lieutenant sighed. "My mother has been gravely ill for years. Had the general not ordered the army physician to treat her and sent vast quantities of herbs, she would have died long ago. He saved my life. I cannot betray him." I laughed until tears nearly spilled. Jiang Weichen used my Su family's resources to curry favor, only to turn around and devalue me completely. He treated me, and the entire Su family, as his personal possessions, as if it were his birthright. I told the deputy commander, the military doctor and the herbs weren't Jiang Weichen's personal property. "Don't misplace your gratitude." I brought the medic before the deputy commander. The medic bowed. "I am a healer. Any patient brought before me receives my utmost effort, not because the general ordered me to save your mother. But military law is strict. Without the general's command, how could my mother have met you?" merely using public resources for private gain. I spoke plainly, all these years. You've risked your life for him. He traded your battle merits for his own rewards, that's more than enough repayment for his kindness. The deputy commander froze. I added, regardless of any personal ties between you and the general. Neither of you should blur the line between public duty and private gain, endangering the lives of countless people. The deputy commander covered his face in shame. Forgive me. I was wrong. Spring arrived. Melting ice and snow. Yet for the nomadic tribes of the north, it marked the year's most barren season. The Khitan raided the border with 20,000 cavalry, pillaging and burning with unchecked ferocity. The emperor's feelings toward Jiang Weichen, however, were complex. On one hand, restoring his military authority felt like releasing a tiger back into the wild. On the other hand, the border commanders were utterly incompetent, and the court truly had no one else suitable. Just as the emperor wavered, Xiao Mingzhan recommended that deputy commander to his majesty. The two locked themselves in the imperial study, plotting through the night. The next day, the deputy commander was promoted to commander-in-chief, with Xiao Mingzhan as military supervisor. Together, they marched to the frontier. This time, I entered the palace to petition His Majesty, requesting permission to serve as the accompanying military physician and journey to the frontier with them. The emperor was perplexed. He believed I specialized in gynecology, and with the army consisting entirely of men, what use would I be? I replied, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners are general practitioners. Moreover, before I shifted my focus to gynecology to build my reputation, I had been researching at the Imperial Medical Bureau how to accelerate the recovery of soldiers' wounds. I earnestly pleaded with the emperor once more, should this campaign end in resounding victory. I implored him to issue an edict granting me permission to divorce Jiang Weichen. The emperor's expression grew complex. Men may divorce their wives. But why must you divorce your husband? State affairs occupy me. I shall not meddle in your personal matters. It seemed I had driven myself into a dead end. Before leaving the capital, I visited the Jiang residence. Jiang Weichen and Yan Yang had been confined within the duke's residence for half a year, their pent-up conflicts erupting violently. Yan Yang demanded to know why Jiang Weichen refused to divorce me, insisting he should instead marry her openly and honorably. This had made her the capital's greatest laughingstock. Jiang Weichen berated her for being blunt, reckless, and uncivilized, utterly lacking the grace expected of a noble lady. He claimed she had brought shame upon him, causing him to offend prominent families. I stood by the door, listening to the heated exchange for quite some time. Only then did they notice me. Jiang Weichen caught up to me and demanded, "I find it strange. How could a woman like you, without some sort of connection to His Majesty, gain audience with the emperor so frequently?" Jiang Weichen's mind, as expected, could only hold thoughts beneath a woman's skirt. I replied, "The Imperial Medical Bureau sends physicians to the palace daily to check the emperor's pulse. Naturally, I have the opportunity to see His Majesty every day. But you're not an imperial physician. I am a doctor of the Imperial Medical Bureau. All imperial physicians regard me as their teacher." Jiang Weichen pressed urgently. "If that's the case, then quickly petition His Majesty on my behalf. Restore my official position and let me lead the troops into battle. At worst, I'll send Yan Yang away. I'll forget past grievances. You'll still be the rightful mistress of the Duke of Hu's household." I smiled, unmoved. Jiang Weichen cursed me, "You ignorant woman. How dare you place our personal grudges above the welfare of the entire realm? Delaying military affairs makes you a criminal who plunges the people into suffering." I shook my head and said, "The Deputy General has already confessed to His Majesty. During your confinement, you sent word to the Deputy General, instructing him to leak information to the Khitan. You claimed that upon your return to the capital, the Emperor, deceived by treacherous courtiers, placed you under house arrest. This led the Khitan to mistakenly believe the court lacked capable generals, prompting their frequent cavalry raids. And you, in turn, could use this opportunity to escape your confinement. Jiang Weichen's face stiffened. How do you know this? I spared him further words, drawing a divorce letter from my sleeve and handing it to him. Jiang Weichen saw the characters on the envelope and tore the letter to shreds in fury. Only men divorce their wives. How can a woman divorce her husband? I watched him calmly. Soon enough, before departing, I glanced at Yang Yang, as if by accident. She returned my gaze with eyes full of hatred. I smiled and reminded her, see? Once you've no use to him, he discards you like trash. With that, I strode out of the Jiang residence. Yet that very night, I heard news that Yang Yang had stabbed Jiang Weichen. Time passed. On the day of departure, Jiang Weichen, ill and weak, knelt at the city gate, the mandatory passage for the marching troops, blocking the army's path, begging only to see me once. I ordered him brought to my carriage, though I had no intention of meeting him. Through the curtain, I spoke indifferently. Speak. Jiang Weichen's hoarse voice came through. Some days ago, when I was gravely wounded and my consciousness was fading, I had a dream. In my previous life, I imprisoned you until your death. Yet after you died, neither Yang Yang nor I ever lived in splendor. In that past life, Yang Yang and I offended people without realizing it. And in the end, everyone turned against us. Only later did I realize she was like a hen that never laid eggs, utterly incapable of bearing children, unable to carry on the Jiang family line. Later still, I recalled how, when you managed the household, everything ran smoothly. Even when I accidentally said something wrong, you cleaned up my mess. So on my deathbed, I regretted it. I begged the heavens for another chance. But in this life, I still awoke too late. Rong, you've been reborn too, haven't you? Since that's the case, and I know my mistakes now, why don't we bury the hatchet and make amends? This time around, I'll treat you well and make up for all I've taken from you. I pulled a divorce decree from my sleeve and slipped it through the carriage curtain. I said, if you feel you owe me, accept this letter. I won't sign it. Jiang Weichen went mad, seemingly wanting to storm the carriage. But nearby guards restrained him. Rong. I finally got a second chance. I won't give up. He roared at the carriage. Finally, I lifted the carriage curtain, but not to face Jiang Weichen. I beckoned to Xiao Mingzhan. His Majesty decreed Jiang Weichen be confined to his residence. Yet he defied the Imperial edict and fled. What punishment does he deserve? Those who disobey the Imperial decree shall be executed. Xiao Mingzhan replied. I lowered the curtain and said, let's go. Xiao Mingzhan would handle Jiang Weichen. My carriage followed the army as we slowly departed the city gates. At the frontier, I would continue my unfinished work. I would also establish a school to train female physicians, benefiting women everywhere. Beyond that small wooden door lay a world far broader than any I had known. The end.